They say the most dangerous betrayals don't come from enemies, but from those who swear they love you. Jess learned this lesson one slow, brutal step at a time. Long before she ever imagined herself standing on the edge of madness, looking into the eyes of people who wanted to erase her. Jess was always the type of woman who believed family was everything. She had married Ryan after a whirlwind romance that felt like destiny. The right smiles, the tender words, the way he looked at her as though she were his entire world. For a while, she truly believed she had found her safe place. They talked about children, about building a home together, about futures that seemed certain. But love has a way of hiding cracks until pressure makes them split wide open. And pressure came in the cruelest way, a pregnancy that ended in heartbreak, leaving Jess hollowed out, raw, and fragile. The nursery they had painted together stood empty. The tiny clothes folded in drawers became a cruel reminder of what she had lost. The grief weighed on her chest like a stone. Every day, every night, she woke in the dark, her body aching for something that was no longer there. And in that emptiness, the people closest to her began to show their true faces. Ryan grew distant. At first, Jess thought it was grief to his own way of coping. But then she noticed how he pulled away when she tried to hold him, how his phone lit up late at night with names she didn't recognize, how he brushed her questions aside with sharpness she had never seen before. He would disappear for hours claiming work, yet come home smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't hers. A hollow smile would cross his face when she confronted him, and he would say, "You're imagining things, Jess. You're too emotional." And hovering over it all was his mother, Dr. Mary Ann, a woman Jess had always tried to please, even when every smile from her felt like it carried a razor's edge. Mary Ann was a respected doctor in the community, admired, trusted. To everyone else, she was kindness and authority blended perfectly. But to Jess, she was suffocating, always there, always watching, her advice laced with subtle criticism. "You should rest more, Jess. Maybe you're not strong enough for motherhood." "I know what's best for Ryan." Each word was a needle slowly draining Jess of her confidence. Jess tried to dismiss it as her mind playing tricks, the paranoia of grief. But then there was that night. They were having dinner at Mary Ann's grand dining table, the chandelier light gleaming on polished oak, plates of food steaming, wine glasses reflecting the glow. Jess's mother was there too, a quiet woman who rarely spoke unless it mattered. Just as Jess lifted her fork, her mother's hand brushed hers under the table. A whisper almost too soft to hear. "Don't eat." The words froze her in place. Jess lowered her fork, her heart hammering. She glanced at her mother, whose face betrayed nothing but calm composure. That night, Jess excused herself early, her stomach in knots. She lay awake, replaying the moment over and over. What had her mother seen or known? The next morning, she began to notice things. The faint bitterness in her tea whenever Mary Ann prepared it. The dizziness after meals. The supplements Ryan insisted she take from Mary Ann's hand. A chill settled over her as she realized she couldn't trust even the food on her plate. But suspicion wasn't proof. Jess understood one thing. If they were willing to go this far, she couldn't confront them outright. She had to be patient, silent, strategic. She began a hidden notebook tucked beneath a loose floorboard in her bedroom. Every odd glance, every remark, every time Ryan's phone lit up with a message from a beautician, upsiding with a message from every capsule she pocketed, instead of swallowing, it all went into her record. She saved the pills in a jar at the back of her closet. She began watching Mary Ann's eyes during meals. It's a flicker of satisfaction whenever Jess took a bite. the tension when she didn't. She started paying attention to Ryan's conversations half heard. Phone calls, whispered arguments behind closed doors. And then, late at night, Jess dug into her medical files. What she found chilled her blood. Marianne had falsified records. Subtle alterations twisted Jess's symptoms, painting her as unstable, fragile, incapable of making rational decisions, constructing a narrative of madness. And hidden between medical lines were financial papers' inheritance trails. Insurance claims, guardianship filings, showing Jess as a liability, a burden, someone better removed. She wasn't just grieving, she was being erased. And Ryan. One night, Jess overheard him from the hallway. His voice, low, venomous, dripping with contempt. "She's slipping already. Few more weeks and she'll break. After that, we'll move forward." Jess pressed her hand to her mouth to keep from gasping. The man she had trusted with her heart was planning her undoing. They wanted her gone. Jess confided only in her mother. A woman underestimated for her quiet ways, but who had lived long enough to see through masks others missed. Together, they decided. Evidence first, then exposure. They reached out to a private investigator, a man with a reputation for digging where no one else dared. Weeks turned into months as Jess gathered proof, recording Marianne's sharp remarks on her phone, photographing, altered prescriptions, collecting samples of the food she was given. Every piece a thread in the web. The investigator dug deeper into Marianne's past, unearthing malpractice claims that had disappeared from the record, women whose files had been altered beyond recognition, patients who had simply vanished after questioning Marianne's care. Again and again one name appeared, a lawyer, polished and untouchable, who specialized in burying scandals and silencing complaints. Marianne hadn't acted alone. She had built a system. The danger grew. Ryan's temper sharpened, his mask slipping. He would slam doors, shout accusations that Jess was ungrateful, that she was crazy for suspecting him. Marianne's threats became pointed. Fragile women like you often end up institutionalized. Sometimes it's for the best. Jess began to sleep with her phone recording under her pillow. Every sound captured, every whisper saved. She leaked evidence to a journalist she trusted, just enough to spark interest without revealing her hand. A small spark soon whispers turned into questions. Articles surfaced. Victims who had remained silent for years stepped forward, emboldened by Jess's courage. Their stories lined up. With hers, falsified records, manipulation, gaslighting, poison hidden behind the mask of care. The empire that once looked untouchable began to fracture. Prosecutors circled Marianne. Investigators pried open locked files, finding layers of fraud and malpractice. Ryan's finances collapsed as his ties to the scheme became public. The shadow lawyer, once smug in his untouchable reputation, was dragged into the light, his empire of silence exposed. Piece by piece, the structure fell apart. And Jess she stood at the center. Not prey, not weak. A survivor. Her silence had been her sharpest weapon. Ryan lost everything's career, his reputation, his freedom. Marianne faced indictments she could not escape. The lawyer's empire shattered as victims poured out of the shadows. And Jess walked away stronger, scarred, but free. Revenge wasn't loud. It was patient. If this story grips you, know that. Jess's tale is just one of many hidden in the shadows. There are more truths waiting, more masks to be pulled away. Subscribe to Shattered Bonds because sometimes the darkest betrayals are the ones that look like love. Jess rebuilt her life quietly. She planted flowers in her mother's backyard, tended to a small vegetable patch, went to therapy, and slowly allowed herself to smile again. She wrote letters she would never send, releasing the anger and grief from her body one word at a time. Yet at night, when the house was still, she remembered how close she had come to disappearing. She remembered Ryan's voice on the phone, Mary Ann's eyes watching her at the dinner table, the taste of bitterness in her tea. And that's why she chose to share her story, because betrayal hides in plain sight, and silence can be deadly. This is not the end. It's a reminder. Next time, it could be someone you know. Stay sharp. And don't forget, subscribe to Shattered Bonds, where the masks come off and the truth finally speaks.